Welcome everybody to the Nostalgia Check. In this series I'm revisiting games from my childhood, games that I remember liking all those years ago but that I can't recall anything specific about anymore. How outstanding can a game really be if all I have left is a vague idea of it being good? Last time I went back to Silver, a PC action RPG where you use your sword by dragging your mouse across the screen, and for this episode I wanted to take on an alleged classic. Future Cop L.A.P.D. What do I actually remember of Future Cop L.A.P.D. though? It was a PlayStation 1 game that I used to play religiously with a buddy of mine, so there definitely was some kind of multiplayer involved. The base premise was that you were piloting some kind of small mech in an isometric action game, and really I just remember firing tons of rockets at buildings, people, vehicles, everything. I know that's very little, but that's all I can recall. From the title I'd guess you're in some kind of police force in Los Angeles, but why or when, I have absolutely no idea. All I know is that we had tons of fun with this game, and that's why I want to check it out again. So let's give it a proper examination 20 years later. Good God, I'm so old. Anyway, some of my assumptions actually turned out to be true. You are playing a policeman in a futuristic Los Angeles, piloting a small, heavily armed mech unit. What I didn't remember, however, was the wisecracking operator lady that talks in your ear the entire fucking time and never ever stops.
And I don't like the looks of that.
Throughout the campaign you go up against various criminal masterminds, however the justification and explanation for why you need to go in and shoot everyone is usually very poor. In the first mission alone, the briefing tells you nothing more than that an assassin called Miles Mysterio, which, great name, has taken over the city's planetarium with his goons and turned the telescope into a giant plasma cannon, and now you have to go in and stop it. So hold on just a minute. Even if we accept it as a possibility that this criminal turned a telescope into a giant death laser, what I want to know is how did he manage to build an entire army, and how did he get all of them inside the compound before anyone was able to even intervene? The enemies just get more and more absurd with every subsequent operation too. In one, for example, there's a group of underground mutants trying to take over the surface, and somehow they also have unlimited access to high-end military technology. From the constant jokes coming through the radio chatter and also some of the cutscenes, I can tell that I'm not supposed to take any of this seriously, but I still find the level of destruction this game operates on weird, considering I'm playing a police officer. The base gameplay of Future Cop L.A.P.D. is pretty much what I was afraid of. Just the fact that this is a PS1 game, whose controllers, might I remind you, did not have a second analog stick, made me worried before I even picked it up. In a game where you're trying to frantically shoot everything around you, not being able to move the camera without also moving your unit should theoretically cause some problems. And boy oh boy did it cause some problems. This game has tank controls and the camera turns left and right when you do. You can choose between various weapon loadouts, and with a few exceptions like the shockwave generator, most of them are projectile based, so they require aiming. Now guess what's incredibly hard to do without individual camera controls. You can tell that the developers were aware of how difficult the marriage between an isometric viewpoint, tank controls and shooting mechanics would be. The game does a lot of the heavy lifting for you. It features a pretty forgiving auto-targeting system, for example, that immediately locks onto anything you're vaguely looking at. Most explosion weapons also have huge radiuses that make it hard to miss with them, and your mech can take a lot of punishment before you actually have to fear dying. But the shooting's still awkward, because when the game aims for you, you can't decide on your own what exactly you want to shoot at. With multiple enemies in front of you, the game will do its damnedest to prevent you from targeting the one you actually want to kill first. Not to mention that oftentimes enemies are up in the air or on balconies above you, so trying to figure out when exactly the targeting system will latch onto something that's not in your direct line of sight becomes a massive crapshoot. What the camera can't handle in particular is the game's own level geometry. I guess it's admirable that the camera adjusts its height depending on what it is hovering over, but on every ramp, every building, every elevation it will rise up in altitude and then immediately come down again when you move it just a little bit more. However, in Future Cop L.A.P.D. you are never not moving, and the result is a camera that goes fucking apeshit on every turn, as you can probably see from my footage. Especially on the first few missions, when I was just getting accustomed to it, this legitimately gave me pulsating headaches. What's even worse about it though is that I'm still not convinced that all of these elevated platforms and buildings need to be in the game to begin with. I would probably be fine if this was just a plain isometric shoot 'em up in which your main goal was to avoid complex bullet patterns. Instead, it focuses on all the shitty aspects though. Platforming is a big element, for example, and by god is it rage-inducing. It's not only that you have to constantly do precision jumps with tank controls, there's also almost no leniency when you press jump too early or too late. You're gonna slip off the edges constantly, and the way the game punishes you for it is just unreasonable. Especially early on, it felt absurd how much fall damage I was receiving when I just wanted to take a shortcut by jumping a few meters down. Enemy projectiles somehow barely even phase this mech, but take one wrong step off a railing and it instantly falls apart apparently. Particularly on the later missions, almost any failed jump will throw you into a pit that either kills you instantly or drains your life so quickly that you're practically dead anyway. And by the way, once you die, you have to start the whole mission over. There are no checkpoints on levels that take a good 20 minutes or longer to complete. I admit with absolutely no shame whatsoever that halfway through the campaign I just started safe scumming the shit out of it, because I at least wanted to see the rest. Honestly, I think I'm an extremely patient person, and especially when it comes to games, I can sit through hours upon hours of bashing my head against the wall as long as I feel it's on me to get better. But this mixture of horribly imprecise controls and excessive platforming design made me more frustrated than anything I've played in quite a while. I just couldn't deal with it, and it's crazy to me that I used to put up with this as a kid. What's more though is that with all of this verticality, some of the areas become incredibly awkward and confusing to navigate. In the prison level, for example, you start out on the ground floor of the facility and soon have to make your way across rooftops and helicopter landing stations. The level design and especially the ground texture coloring, however, makes it really difficult to distinguish between paths you're supposed to take and roofs you're supposed to ignore. I mean, seriously, why does everything look the fucking same when there's only one correct route? Not to mention that the platforming hasn't gotten any smoother, and accidentally falling off anywhere not only destroys at least half your health bar, but sets you back to pretty much the beginning of the stage. The map ain't helping either, because it doesn't even show the level in 3D, which probably is one of the best arguments for why all of these different vertical planes didn't need to be here in the first place. Who the fuck thought that these level designs made sense? At some point I just needed a break from this shitty campaign, so I had a choice to make. Either drink some bleach or try one of the other modes. Regrettably I was all out of bleach, so to the best of my abilities I gave the multiplayer a shot. The 2-player modes after all were what I specifically remember enjoying back as a kid, so maybe this would improve things. You have two options for the multiplayer. Either go through the campaign in co-op, which, well, no thank you, or you can play the competitive mode. The latter consists of a 1 versus 1 base defense game. Thankfully, even if you are alone, there is an enemy AI to play against that promises to get stronger the more you defeat it. How the mode works is that both players start out in a small fortified garrison, from which they can send out tanks to attack the enemy base or helicopters to defend their own. They also may venture out to capture and destroy turrets all around the map, kill the other player, and take on additional bases that offer strategic advantages. The winning condition is to get a single tank into the enemy base. I gotta admit, this mode was at least more enjoyable than the campaign. The map layouts are decent in this, because they work more on a strategic horizontal level, where the value of turrets and extra bases is clearly defined by how close they are to the enemy base. The systems themselves also seem fairly solid. You have to be active on the map and destroy and capture enemy structures to acquire points to invest into your own tanks and helicopters, and you have to actively decide between offensive and defensive investments. Capturing the extra bases also costs quite a bit, and tanks sent from there require double the resources, so you have an extra incentive to protect them. Meanwhile, none of the structures are very durable, so it is easy to lay waste to those parts of the enemy territory that he can't protect currently because he is somewhere else. This forces both players to keep going back and forth between spending their points and attacking the enemy structures where it makes the most sense. It is surprisingly involved while remaining easy enough to grasp and have fun with right off the bat, so I can see why I would have enjoyed this back in the day, as I'm sure at least a few people watching this right now did so as well. Despite the mode being cool, however, I fell off pretty quickly. I got bored with the enemy AI that remained non-threatening even after a couple of wins. For the most part, pumping out tanks while throwing yourself at the enemy base to destroy all the turrets as they respawn and then hope just one of your vehicles eventually gets through was more than enough. And even if I had someone to play this against, with only 4 maps and the fairly limited weapon selection, I can't help but feel it would only take 1 or 2 hours to see what most of the multiplayer has to offer. Ultimately, I went back to the campaign. I certainly didn't want to play any more of it, but I don't like leaving things unfinished. After more increasingly enraging platforming segments, however, something weird happened. The game started to get intriguing. In the mission Long Beach, I was sent into a facility in which not only all electronics had gone haywire, but multiple L.A.P.D units had gone missing, and it wasn't clear why. During the briefing, my handler mentioned a supercomputer with an advanced AI that the owner of the facility had programmed, so the easy assumption was that somehow the AI had taken over the facility. To no surprise, that was exactly what turned out to be the case. What was noteworthy about this mission though was its drastic tonal shift. Future Cop L.A.P.D had so far been pretty goofy. There were cutscenes with cheap jokes and slapstick moments, I had been shooting at giant death laser telescopes and platforming on comically huge mutated mushrooms, accompanied by the operator in my ear referencing her drug usage in college, so clearly I was not meant to take this seriously, which is why this mission suddenly turning all of that on its head felt so weird. The music up until this point, for example, consisted mostly of up-tempo 90s electronic beats. Here it was replaced by slow, ominous sounding buzzing and humming. At one point during the mission, before the AI's takeover was revealed, I found the former owner of the facility brutalized and chained to a pillar floating in the water as if he had been crucified. Soon after, the AI itself hacked into my comm feed and started talking to me. It kept going on about the inferiority of humans and how it intended to turn humanity into something better. Then, soon after, I discovered that the supercomputer had used all the machinery that it was controlling to not only capture all the workers of the facility, but to tear them apart and replaced their body parts with metal and electronics. Everywhere around me I saw these half-man, half-machine abominations crawling around, senselessly attacking me. It was dark. I mean, as dark as a 90s game with these graphics can be, but still. There was even more though. A true mystery unfolded. When I started foiling the AI's plans, it said that it needed to recalculate what was happening, as it had not expected this fierce resistance. I was getting all these subtle hints from the dialogue that something wasn't right. For example, it stated that my level of combat efficiency was far above the average for my mech model. Additionally, after some research, the AI said this.
Your unit is not in the LAPD database. Did you forget to register?
Not only did this game's writing suddenly get a lot more subtle and the atmosphere had become really dark and ominous, but now an all-powerful AI was dropping clues that my player character might not be what I was led to believe. Looking back at the previous missions, yeah, it was pretty weird how most of it consisted of mowing down hundreds of enemies, and that despite my employment in a police force, there wasn't a single attempt at negotiation or arrest. Not to mention that all of this mindless violence was played down by jokes and sarcastic one-liners from my operator lady. What did it all mean? Was I actually some kind of vigilante? Did my character get brainwashed into believing he was a cop when in reality he was working for some criminal or maybe paramilitary organization? In the opening cinematic, the operator had called me rookie multiple times, so apparently I'm new to the force. But if there was a scheme going on, was she in on it? How did this game suddenly become interesting? This was such a cool tonal shift that I honestly couldn't wait to see what kind of twist this was working up to. So I continued with the current mission, still trying to beat the AI that was in my way. I deactivated some security systems, raised some platforms, finally made it to the computer itself and destroyed it. A post-mission cinematic started playing as it had after every level, but this time I was looking out for more clues about my secret identity. My mech blew up the computer and escaped, and then... wait, what? Credits? Is that it? Is that the whole game? Where's the next mission? Where's the rest of the story? I just couldn't believe it. Here they had this great, surprisingly well done mission out of left field that was entirely subverting the previously established tone. It seemed clear to me that it was setting up a mystery around my character and what I had been doing throughout the entire game, and then it just fucking ends? Are you kidding me? You know, I was willing to forgive this game for past transgressions. I can look past the horrible gameplay, the awful controls, the targeting system, the outrageous platforming and save system as it just not having aged well. I could have moved on with my life. But this is worse. This is like someone smacking me to the ground repeatedly, then offering me a hand to help me get up only to let me fall down again midway. Fuck future Cop L.A.P.D. Fuck whoever made it, fuck whoever wrote it, fuck EA for, well, a bunch of reasons actually, but including being the publisher of this travesty. This game is trash. Bouken signing out. No, fuck this, I'm still mad.